We're back again this week. We have an interesting topic to take on today. We're gonna talk about the upcoming election, how that affects your money, and then we're really gonna get into social aspects. And I kind of named this free floating hostility, kind of an homage to the great George Carlin, who absolutely shaped all of my political and religious views. So this is going to be a colorful episode. You're going to hear a lot of cursing, I assume, because I'm probably going to swear a lot. If you know me in real life, it's going to be like a normal conversation with me because it's every other word. With that being said, I'll talk about what I'm drinking, and then we'll move on to the other gentleman with us. So my friend came up the other day, my friend in the bottom there, and he brought some beers with him. So I'm mixing them today because I wanted to see what that tasted like. So I have a Founders Big Luscious, and I'm mixing that with a McKenzie's Black Cherry Hard Cider. And Mike, the combination is delicious.
I think it would be, and I meant to mix, but I didn't drink enough to mix when I was there on Sunday.
I will make sure there's some left next time you come because they are delicious.
So, guys, say this is going to be a very touchy subject for a lot of people, right?
What are you about to tell us about a controversial beer? What do you?
Yeah, say. No, like what we're going to talk about tonight, right? I mean, when you bring politics into things, you tend to right. You either gain friends closer, or you like move people away from where you are, and right. I'm hoping to have a very educational conversation and keep it so that way it's respectful. People that are watching out there, one of the biggest things, right? So. My wife hits it on the head when she talks about me. So I'm a very social Democrat. Economically, like I am a Republican, right? So we'll get into it a little bit more, especially with how I am in business and how I am in this world. But tonight, what I'm drinking, again, great sponsor for my brother. Tonight, I'm just so excited for this episode, right? We need to get this off and we need to get this out there. I'm drinking Lady Luck. It's an Imperial Red. Ale from Carabine 4 out of Wisconsin. So microbrew awesome. There. Again, I went with one of my new top 5 beers. So I have the new Glarus Brewing Wisconsin Belgian Red. There's a red theme here. Again, that thing a couple episodes back moved into top 5. And my wife and I's favorite top beer together. I brought out a Hazel's Nuts from OddSide Ale right here in Grand Haven, Michigan.
Awesome.
So to me, 3 big winners. Justin, thanks for the sponsor. I appreciate that. Again, looking forward to it. Jim, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you're drinking and a little bit. Oh, go ahead, David.
Before we get to Jim, full disclosure, I have a feeling because I know these 3 pretty well. What we're coming from tonight is we're all pretty socially liberal. We're all pretty fiscally conservative. Okay. And unfortunately, there's really no party for any of us because there's no party that really encapsulates that the way it should. But Jim has a great story here about politics and he has some beer.
I do have. So first, the important part, the beer. I'm kind of going a little bit basic tonight. So I've got Founders Solid Gold, which is their lager. It's low alcohol. Kind of a basic lager. It's better than any of the mass-produced Budweisers or Millers out there, but it's nothing to write home about, but it's a good solid lager. And again, it's sort of my version of a light beer. And then this week I'm trying Hazel, which is from North Peak Brewing Company. I think they're located in Traverse City and Dexter, Michigan, of all places. So they've got 2 locations, one near Ann Arbor, Hazel, which is the home of my alma mater, which is why I tried this particular one. And speaking of which, so I have a background both in political science as an academic exercise. So I graduated with a bachelor's degree from Michigan in political science and communication in 1994. And I also worked for a number of years in politics, including probably the pinnacle of my political achievements was working on the Bush Quayle campaign in 1992 when we lost to Bill Clinton. My background is, old school sort of Christian conservative, Republican. And again, as I was mentioning to folks kind of off camera before we got started here, I keep in touch with a lot of the Republicans I used to work with. My cohort group. So we're all in our late 40s now, and with very few exceptions, all of us are now leaning much more liberal, and are all either have already voted for, as I have, or are leaning toward voting for or planning to vote for Joe Biden in this election. And again, I think it's because of the shifting sands of our politics, not necessarily because we've changed that much. Although I've always, as David indicated, I've always leaned a little bit probably more liberal on the social side of things. Really consider myself to be more of a, in terms of political philosophy, more of a what we used to call liberty Republicans, which we used to describe as libertarians that could actually get elected to office, right? So we were, we kind of fell under the Republican umbrella, but we're much more, I would, we consider to be social liberals now. But the way I always considered it was to be that we were, that we followed the Constitution, right? We were in favor of individual and collective liberties, right? So in other words, we favored people's right to essentially decide for themselves, things which are not necessarily popular among conservatives now.
Well, and I think a good example of that, if anybody's looking for a name, would be your current congressman, Justin Amash.
Justin Amash, exactly. That's right. Yeah. So Justin, who represents the 3rd District of Michigan, he actually embodies that probably as well as anyone else. He and a woman I used to work for named Margaret O'Connor are really the two, I would say, considered to be most philosophically libertarian elected officials I've ever known. And I align probably most closely with him politically. And I think, if anybody's familiar with his story, he was a state legislator, U.S. House of Representatives, ran in his 20s, got elected to Congress, as a Michigan state senator as well, got elected to Congress in his early 30s. Has never been a darling of the Republican Party. In fact, as happened to my former boss, Margaret, as well, the Republicans actually tried to get him removed from office by running challengers against him in the primaries, which is something that's not too common, right? But he definitely bucked the party trends. And again, for those who aren't familiar with his story, he actually last year, because of the things that were happening with Trump and the Mueller investigation and so forth, resigned from the Republican Party. Basically, he said that Trump deserved to be removed from office, that he should be impeached, and as a result was stripped by the Republicans of all of his committee chair or of all of his committee memberships and so forth in Congress, and then he just resigned from the party. So yeah, it's a good example, David. Justin Amash is someone I would definitely not obviously don't agree with everything he says and does, but in terms of his general philosophy as a constitutionalist, I definitely agree. And he's a civil libertarian, right? And that's really that really sums up my social political views. And yeah, I definitely tend to be more conservative fiscally.
So, and Benson, it's not that we're leaving you out, but I just want to save the best advice for everybody for last. So right before this, you told me one of the greatest facts of today, and then tell me what you're drinking.
Yeah, today is actually American Beer Day.
Here,
So
here.
you have
Cheers.
people drinking American beers, American ciders. I'm actually drinking as my starting beer. It's called Fido. It's by
Awesome.
Blake's. It's actually part of, they're doing a campaign where with certain of their ciders, they give to charitable causes the proceeds.
Oh,
And the charitable cause with Fido is Pets for Patriots.
no, excellent.
There we go.
Unfortunately, then, because I only have one of those, my Guinness is my backup today because that's all I had in my house.
All right.
So one American, one brewed in America, but considered to be foreign.
So, all right. Let's say, David, right, full disclosure, I ended up calling David on Sunday, just stressed out, pretty late at night, right? Like, just I can't do this anymore. I'm a very open person. I put a lot of things on social media. I talk about my personal life, share my family, right? I want people to be interested. But politically, right, I don't share what my opinion is, because I know my friends, and if I say one thing, I mean, they'll still accept me, but they won't, they'll look at it differently. So we talked about that. One thing I want to start this conversation out, we've done introductions and things like that. I want to talk about where money's at right now, the U.S. economy, kind of, we've touched on it in a couple subjects, but right, and what the election is going to look like if we go either way, right? Financially, what we think will happen, what trends tell us will happen.
So getting into that, Nick, one of the things we always look at when it comes to the economy, which we did an episode on YouTube like 3 weeks ago on what is the economy. And we were, full disclosure, we came out and we said it has nothing to do with the stock market. So understand that the first thing I'm going to talk about when it comes to the economy here tonight is the stock market. Seems like a contradiction, but really it's not, because many of the people out there want to use the stock market as a determining factor in voting, whether they vote for a Democrat or a Republican. And I know that over my lifetime, I've always had my pick of jobs, and I've always had more money under Democratic presidents. When we have Republican presidents, I have less of a choice of jobs and I have less money. So really, how do we look here depending on who gets elected? Because of course, if you listen to Trump, if Biden's elected, you'll have no money. So when you look at the experts, they basically say, really, it's probably going to be a push no matter who you have, because electing an incumbent president always gives the stock market a boost. So initially, those first few months, it's probably better for the market if Trump is reelected. But over time, the market has done extremely well in the last 30, 40 years under Democratic leadership. So when we look at performances, during an election year, average returns are about 7%. Okay, no matter the president. Now, with a Democratic president, it's only about 4%. With a Republican, it's about 9%. But when you look at a year post the election, no matter who the president is, it's about 6.7%. With a Republican president, it's about 1.5%. With a Democratic president, that jumps to over 14%, 14.28%.
Sure.
So really, when we look at these, the initial, like I said, is it's probably better if Trump wins. But in the long term, you're looking at better returns if it's a Democratic president. So obviously, in this case, it would be Joe Biden. Now, when you're looking at an incumbent versus winning and losing, numbers really support, where those Republicans stand and where those Democrats, are 1 year post. It's 11% for both, basically. And if they lose, it's 3%. So really, if you had your choice for that first year, Trump, if you're just based off of economy, Trump is a better option for you. But after that first year, it's really probably a push.
I don't, David, I think I might disagree with you on this one, only because that's what you said is absolutely true historically, right? No doubts there. Your numbers are absolutely correct. But we're in an unusual situation right now, right? With given that the economy really hasn't been measured the way that it is, as long as it's been probably about 40 or 50 years, maybe going back 70 years with some economic indicators, certainly not back to the last pandemic, right? And 2020 is very unusual in a lot of ways. And one of the ways that I think that I think may buck that trend that you've described is that the markets tend to look for stability. And one of the reasons that they tend to do better when an incumbent is reelected is because they know what they have, right? They know what they're getting. But Trump thrives on chaos. And on top of that, the markets right now are reacting to his inability to manage this pandemic, his inability to even confront it, right? I mean, basically last weekend we heard from his chief of staff, they've given up. They're not going to even try to manage this pandemic anymore. And so I think the markets are actually are going to react much more favorably if Biden is elected than they will if Trump is elected, simply because the markets right now are looking for stability. They're looking for a steady hand. They're looking for sanity, and they're not seeing it. And that's so initially the big downturn was because the economy is being shut down. We went into lockdown mode, but the fluctuation and the downturns we've seen recently have been a direct result of this guy in the White House and the things that come out of his mouth, right? And so I think this may be a trend reversing year as far as that goes.
And I would absolutely agree with you. I think overall, like you said, they like stability.
Yep.
And it has not been a stable year. Trump has had a horrible year, both economically, job-wise, socially. Yep. I mean, he is obviously in the tank right now. It still shocks me that he's polling towards a possibility at winning, because literally, if this was anybody else, it would be Reagan Mondale.
Sure. Yep.
Well, I say, and I have to give my opinion because we're here to talk about opinions.
Mm-hmm.
What I will, right? I can debate with people so much on this when we talk about jobs and, right, the economy is doing well. I'm living proof right now of, yes, okay, the jobs are still there, but if we look at it, companies are, right, as much as we don't want to admit, right, big corporations, they're very smart. I'm proof of that, because let's say I was making $24 an hour. I got fired, and so did 980 other employees got fired, right? And I know for a fact that none of them were less than 3 years into the company, right? None of them were making big money, where they're hiring in people at $12 an hour. So, right, those jobs are still there. What they've done is, they've cut it. You're making all this, and now they're just refilling those jobs with people who are making less money, anticipating, hey, we're going to take, that $10 an hour, that's profit back into their pocket until they have to pay it, because they're giving that person the same benefits I was given. We got rid of a lot of salary people and things like that, making people do more things. So, everybody will say, well, numbers are numbers, and yes, I agree, right? If you look at the numbers, they are a thing, but when you look at businesses in general, right, they will tell you, hey, they have slowed down on the amount of money, and they've cut a lot of the top things. Not the problem is it's not the top, right? It's that middle, middle. Yeah. Because when I got fired from Gentex, nobody got bonuses, but the top people and all the holders got $3.2 billion in bonuses and gain share, right? So they're $8 billion every quarter, but they still got all their money, but none of the people down below got anything. So, look at. I'm
going to take issue for a minute, Nick. You said they're smart. They're not smart. They're short-sighted.
Yeah.
Okay. They solved a problem with a short-term solution. So it looks smart right now, but 5 years down the road, this is not a smart move.
I guess I would say I disagree, right? The only reason I say that is because within 5 years, they can get those same people trained. The hardest part of company we talk about is turnover, right? But when you're getting rid of your lower end things, your turnover's, going to be the same no matter what happens. But, those people will grow into it, and their hope is, right, COVID is done, the economy starts changing, and they'll go into it. Yes. We don't know until COVID happens, right? But I think, they and the way I see it, right, is the people that took my job, whoever it is, right? Let's say it's Jim for some reason, right? Well, Jim probably had a lower paying job and then took $12 an hour because it was, better. And, now he's going to go out and buy a car, which has a Gentex mirror in it. He's going to go out and finance these things. He's going to boom that little economy just a little bit. So I think it's going to be this false negative until it starts hitting, right? And then the normal American hits in.
Yeah, but the point here is, when you look at a hiring aspect, and I guess I kind of look at this, having a small business, it takes so much more to train somebody to be at your level than it does just to keep you.
Yep.
So the negative of you for the next 2 years, yeah, that's a negative because they're paying you a lot of money to be there. But they know exactly what they're getting. They don't have to go through 5 people trying to replace you because the
Right.
first 4 suck.
Right. Well, but again, I can't say they replaced my specific job where, I mean, they did a lot of production, things like that. And I know, I hear rumor, right? I'm not part of it anymore. I don't know, but right. They took people that are still in office and they're making them work production 1 week out of every month. I mean, they're forcing this downturn for people to fill in positions, right? And you say it cost money, but the amount of people that, they got rid of 1/6 of the whole company worth of staff, which includes, right, the one person that would hire this person. So now, this HR is hiring it. And I think, yes, when it comes to small business, there's that. But like, I think large corporation, it's a heck of a lot faster to eat that cost because, I mean, doing 1/6 of your amount of money, that's a lot of budget cut real quickly, right? So, I don't know. I'm still seeing all these companies out here hiring, right? I mean, you look at, so again, everybody, we are from West Michigan, the Midwest, right? And so when we talk companies, sorry if you don't know, but LG Chem, right? Everybody knows LG. LG Chem's hiring. I mean, you got
Amway, Steelcase, all the Bissell, Meyer. Yeah. Places
so
people outside the Midwest know are all hiring right now.
Yeah, and say there, so it's still looking like it has to happen, right? I mean, I tend to find that people, when things start to slow, right? They're gonna figure out whether the new people were good, and they'll move them up, or they'll just get rid of them like it didn't matter in the first place. I mean, you're very expendable as an employee, so.
So we know how much I love Dan Price. We've talked about him on several episodes now.
Yeah.
So he tweeted out yesterday, MGM laid off 18,000 people. Its CEO agreed to a $700,000 pay cut in March when most employees were furloughed. It wasn't really a pay cut. He tweeted it for $700,000 in stock, which is now worth 1.4 million.
Yep.
Because of the cost savings of those layoffs. So you're absolutely right, Nick. For the big businesses, it makes sense. But they're not reinvesting this or saving this money in any way. They're giving it to their executives because for some reason they think that's what makes their company go, and it's just not.
Well, I think what you're hitting on, there's a couple of things that I think you're both hitting on, right? And again, getting back to my background in political science, which includes political economy and actually working in politics, is it's this whole idea, and I think this is what what we're seeing with the presidential campaigns right now. But it's the whole Wall Street versus Main Street, or as Biden has, I think, so successfully labeled it, Scranton versus Park Avenue, right? And I think that what you're hitting on here is the idea that it's the two economies. There's the Main Street economy, which is the small businesses. It's people going to work every day, and what we're seeing outside of this current election, outside of even the last 4 years of the Trump administration, and even before getting back to well before the Obama administration, is this big wealth gap, right? Where it used to be that you talk about the short-term outlook versus the long-term outlook, the 5-year outlook versus the next quarter. It used to be that companies, if you started a company, or if you were the president of a company, you were there for your career. People worked at companies for their entire careers. They had a stake in it, right? And so there was a kind of, there was more planning for the long term. Companies understood they had to, at least at some point, especially after kind of the progressive era, companies had to start taking care of their employees if they wanted to keep them around. And they started to offer healthcare benefits and other benefits. Weekends were an innovative thing 100 years ago. And then what you start to see is this gap really started, I think, probably in the 50s and 60s, but really accelerated in the 70s and 80s, right? 80s being the decade of greed and everything. And what a lot of companies, particularly larger companies, realized is, oh my God, we can get away with this.
Yeah.
And that's when it started to be, we don't have to make our employees happy. We just have to make them not want to look somewhere else. And so that's when this big gap started. and you started to see more money being put in the pockets of wealthy people
Yeah.
as opposed to reinvested in the company, right? And so yeah, so there's no matter who's elected, that's going to continue.
It's great. I brought up that point on Sunday when I was talking to David. I said, when we look back, right? GM, the president was making millions of dollars a year, but you never, right? I bowled with a bunch of GM. They're all retired GM guys. I mean, they retired 25 years, but you never heard them complain, right? I had a great job. I got triple time on Sundays, double time on Saturdays, and as cocky as it is, they were making $30 an hour type thing, and they thought that was great money. And honestly, for middle class, it is great money, right?
They make $30 an hour. They work overtime. They're making 60.
Yeah, no, and then and they work every Sunday. I mean, we David and I have a friend who, right? He works 7 days a week, like 12 hours a day.
Yeah,
the dude makes bank, like, because he's not in GM, but he's a different company. But I mean, he's that guy, and he doesn't complain because it feeds his family and makes it the lifestyle he wants. But, right,
time and a half on Saturdays, double time on Sundays.
Yep, exactly.
What he forgets, though, right, is, I mean, and what he doesn't care about is, you said it, right? The gap between that guy that's making 30 and that gap of the guy that's making a crap ton. A friend of mine tweeted, or he put on Facebook today. He goes, the sad part of the U.S. is eight of the richest people make combined their total make more than 200 million other people. He goes, that's where your problem lies. So.
And it's not just that, but in some cases that money is on paper, right? It is because they own these stocks. So you look at like Jeff Bezos, that's not cash. So that is being reinvested because of his stock ownership. But it's absolutely true. Like why? Like that's more money than a human being could spend in 10,000 years, right? It's just crazy to have that amount of money. And I think, but the other downside of that is what happens when, for example, a pandemic breaks out. Like we've seen this, right? We've seen what happens when you've got someone getting back to, talking about the politics of it, when you've got someone who is only focused on Wall Street, who's only focused on himself, who's only focused on his wealthy friends, holding political office. All that Donald Trump has talked about when it comes to the pandemic in terms of the measurable outcomes is the stock market. Right? He talks about how unfortunate it is that people have died, but that's obvious. I mean, when he does that, it's lip service. But the one measurement that he has in terms of how he's managed the pandemic is the stock market, and that's just absolutely ridiculous, right? Because there's so many people out there that that have lost their jobs, and despite the fact that that's starting to turn around now, like you said, there's plenty of jobs out there, but it's very, very difficult for someone even at $30 an hour to go, going from paycheck to paycheck, essentially, to then be to have to take a $12 an hour job, right? They're still not going to be able to afford their mortgage or their car payment or whatever, and that's what's getting ignored in all of this.
I think that's the biggest thing is, right? Like I don't get mad at people, right? But everybody tells me, right? I have a few friends that are like, man, if you want, you can just go get a job, and it's like, yes, I could, and I'm not trying to be that guy who just stays on. This is my first time ever taking unemployment, right? Like I'm not trying to be that guy.
Right.
But again, I was making, I'll tell everybody, right? I was making $24 an hour. And now, yes, I can walk into a place and make 12, 13 an hour, but I have to restart everything. I have to restart my whole situation where, I could just invest a little time over into this side and hope that this works out. And, I've built myself comfortable enough. And I don't plan for America to take care of me, right? Like, I'm taking unemployment because, right, A, it's offered to me, and B, it puts the little food on my table. If it was a thing where it's like, hey, unemployment didn't get extended, I would, I have 3 weeks left or whatever, and I would be the guy to go out there and grab that job. It's not a pride thing in any way.
Right. It's
just, hey, look, when you look at it, I'm paying my taxes off my unemployment still. I paid my taxes to it. I'm gonna see what I can do with my personal life, right? And that becomes a personal decision. I can't say I'm over here complaining. I will give facts about what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing. That's what I'm hoping that people understand is I'm giving facts of what happened to me, facts. But I'm not saying that everybody has the opportunities that I have, right? I mean, I've
Right.
built this opportunity to take this time.
Mhm.
You know, one of the biggest things that I'm having an issue with is, and it's not because I want more money in any way, but I know that there's people out there who are way worse off than I am. And Trump said he will not sign any other extensions or give any more. I don't know what the 600 was, like the COVID relief money or
Yep,
whatever,
extension.
until
Yeah.
after the election
Right.
is completed. And I'm like, man, you have people. You know, we look at businesses, right? The PPP
Mhm.
that was supposed to last what, 5 months, 6 months. Now we're into month 8, 9.
Yep.
Okay, so where's that 3 months coverage?
Right.
You know, we have people who were making, you know, everybody thinks that you just make so much more. Yeah, they were making more for 4 months of their life, right? 3 months of their life.
Right. Right.
But now we're past that point and they're hungry again. They're, you know, like, yes, okay, if you were stupid enough to go spend it, I hear it all the time. You're the stupid one that spent it. No, like, you just lived, you paid your bills, and now it's so hard.
Well, I think people are saying that you're stupid to spend it, are the people that are too stupid to do math. So I don't pay any attention to them, right? Because if you do the math, you realize that now we've gone past that break-even point.
I want to talk about a conversation I had last night, but first I want to just put this into perspective. So we got a stimulus, right? That amounts to, at this point, and I bring that up because McConnell has now sent the Senate home until the 9th because he's decided he doesn't want to work the next 12 days.
Sure. Well, it's because of his mystery hand disease.
Correct. So that stimulus that we got amounts to $5.58 a day.
Mm-hmm.
They thought you could live off $5.58 a day. Mind
Exactly.
you, Canadians got $2,000 a month, or a month.
Yeah.
So speaking of Canadians, I'm on Twitter last night because I'm pissed off about the Bears sucking ass as usual this year. They're the worst 5-2 team ever in football, ever.
Well, okay, yeah, maybe.
So I'm bitching about them online, and everybody's complaining about Barrett, and I'm complaining about that. And one of the guys that we follow each other, his name's David Stone. He lives in Canada. Shout out to David Stone. He basically said, all right, America, you got a week. Figure this out.
Yeah.
Or people like me are never coming back to your country. So this was our exchange. I said, he makes many of us want to leave. The bullshit narrative that this is a great country is just that. It's bullshit. Okay. And I know there are going to be some red, white, and blue people out there that are pissed off at what I'm going to say, but sincerely, fuck you. So his response to me was, it makes you wonder if it ever was great. Did he expose the truth? Next week is your last chance at redemption. So, of course, I take the opportunity to run through the hole because for a moment here, I'm Walter Payton and I see a big asshole and I'm running through it. Which, you three can debate after I say it. It was great, but that ended after World War II. There were moments after that, but then they killed John and Bobby and Martin and Malcolm. They fought wars that were none of their business. They rewrote tax codes so the rich could get rich without consequences. They blamed the poor people for being poor. They blamed women for income inequality or how they dress. They blamed Black people for their crime. They scare stupid people by telling them they're coming for your guns and your religion. They care more about birth than life. They accuse people of socialism and say healthcare is a right. That's where we're at, folks. It's 2020.
I'm going to say that, and keep in mind, this is coming from a recovering Republican, right? I'm going to say that America was always great, has always been great, and always will be great for people that have power and money.
Correct.
And for everybody else, it's a means to get power and money.
And I think it's hard to say, right? Because, I mean, we debate on it all the time. I think everybody has the opportunity, right? It's not that everybody has an equal opportunity. I mean, right? Because there's some that get handed things, but everybody has the opportunity. So I think it's great in that aspect. When you learn about other countries, you don't have that opportunity, right?
Yep. I will also say that I agree. And it might sound like I'm contradicting myself, but I don't think I am. You're absolutely right about that. And I'm going to paraphrase, and as someone with a background in history and politics, I should know who I'm paraphrasing. I can't remember who it is off the top of my head, but we have the absolute worst country except for all others, right?
Right.
So in that sense, I think that you're right. We do. There has always been opportunity for everyone in some sense, but for the true greatness of America, it really is a myth in the sense that our greatness has been built on the backs of child labor, slavery. Our sins have gotten
Oh, Jim paused on us.
less as move forward, which is, I think, a great topic. Like, how do we keep moving things forward? Because I think we're on the precipice of regressing right now. But I think things have gotten better. But have they ever been great? Yeah, they've been great for a lot of people, just not the great masses of people.
Well,
However, having said that, right, if I'm an Irishman in the 19th century experiencing potato famine, America, no matter how bad it might be, no matter how much the robber barons might take advantage of my labor, is a hell of a lot better than starving, right?
Yeah.
But it's not great in the sense that everyone, like you said, Nick, it's not great in the sense that everyone truly, it's not the myth we learned about on Schoolhouse Rock, right?
Yeah. See, I want to make sure we keep talking about finances because everybody needs to. This is who we are.
Yep.
Right. When I look at the financial spot of America, right, the next 4 years, I guess I want all the opinions of you guys. Like, tell me what you see if you put Biden into office, and tell me what you see if you put Trump into office the next 4 years, right?
Yep.
So I can tell you right now, I'm worried. I'm worried about the tariffs. Nick and I discussed tariffs the other night.
Mm-hmm.
He's absolutely correct. China has never paid their fair share.
Nope.
But here's the question. What's the tariffs actually doing for us? So, because I'm a numbers guy, I looked up numbers. The tariffs have brought in almost $80 billion. The negatives to that. The long run GDP outlook is down 0.25%, which isn't a lot, but it's still down. Wages are down 0.15%. Here's the one that kills me. Full-time jobs are down almost 180,000.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, we had a problem with trade. China never paid their fair share. Trump came in and said, this is bullshit. We're going to change that. That's great. But it hasn't had the effect that he said it was going to have, or that he is still saying that it does have.
Yep.
It hasn't made our lives better in the long run at this point.
All right. Well, when you talk about tariffs bringing in money, let's think about what that really means, right? It's $80 billion into what?
Right.
Into the U.S. Treasury, but where's that money actually coming from? China's not paying that money.
No.
Right? Tariffs are taxes on imported goods, which means they're not levied when they leave China. They're levied when they arrive in the United States. And then who pays for that, right? It's whoever's importing it, and they pass those costs on.
Right.
It's like any kind of a use tax or anything like that, right? When the gas tax goes up, it's the people that are paying at the pump that end up paying that. When we implement these tariffs, the idea behind tariffs at least since the 18th century, has not been necessarily to raise money, which is it was the primary source of income, right, for a long time in our country. But the purpose of tariffs is to change that trade balance. It's not necessarily to raise money. So yeah, $80 billion maybe net, but that's money coming out of the pockets of the people who are buying those goods. Bottom line, right?
And that's right. That's the greatest point. I mean, that's what I find all the time is people at the top will never pay, right? Like,
exactly.
I mean, when I think, okay, even myself, right? I mean, technically I'm at the top of my business, right? I own the business. Okay. So let's say my taxes go up. Yes. Okay. The failure that I have as a business owner is I don't always raise my rents the way I should. I don't do it by the business, but I mean, I still do, right? Like if I get a tenant turnover, I raise the rent more towards what market should be. Sure. I mean, I'm nowhere at market for any of my properties, and I fail in my business because of that. But right, like again, tariffs are only going to go to the next person. So I pass on my bills to my tenants, right? I pass on things to the next person. It's what we do, right? I mean, and now it's just a matter of, okay, where can you, and And I think the social side of me is, okay, I hear complaints about there's never, good places to rent for inexpensive prices. And, so I keep mine lower on that side because, I want good quality people that just want to get by type thing. That's just my business mindset and how I build things. And it tends to work out a little bit. But right, when the price of beer goes up, we look at lumber right now, right? We look at lumber.
That's a great example.
Anybody that's seeing anything right now, if you have dealt with anything besides free pallets from the place down the road from you, a 2x4, used to be $2.12, right? Like, I'm not lying. This is a real thing. And then a month ago was up to $7.46. Actually, I want to say 16. It was 46. $7.46. Okay, right? Because mills aren't working, things aren't happening. I mean, you didn't see the mill eat that price, right? You didn't see this thing.
No. I'm paying $7.46 for a fucking 2x4.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I think somebody just posted, and I didn't check because I haven't gone to Lowe's in like 3 days, which is surprising. But somebody said it went down to like $6.40 something cents. So
it did go down. I saw it went down over the weekend.
Did it? Okay. So I'll give them that, but like, it's still not back down to where it was.
No.
I'm talking to a lot of my friends that are building houses and they're doing things. And I have 2 builders that are instantly right on their quote. They're plus $30,000 to $40,000 on their build because of where lumber prices are. Just base price is $30,000 to $40,000 up because it's costing so much. Right? Like, no company is ever going to eat that price. Like, if you want it, you pay for it.
Sure.
I give. Have you guys ever seen the show Returning the Favor with Mike Rowe?
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Really, David? That surprised me because it happened with the lady in, I want to say, Grand Rapids.
It was up Cedar Springs. Or no,
off Alpine.
Yeah, up there. I saw that. She was the restaurant owner, right?
Amore or whatever. But
yeah.
So
anyway. The Italian place.
Yeah, that's Don's lady.
Right.
Yeah, they were giving food and all that. But anyway, so one company that I've seen technically eat it, right? But they donate, and that's fine. But I just watched an episode. There's a guy in Alaska who bought a boat because everything is shut down, and they're kind of like on the tip of an island. You have to go over mountains and stuff like that. And he's like, he's traveling in to go get all of his stuff put on a ship and bring it in, or a pretty big boat. And he's like, he's like, I didn't raise prices on any of my people. It's costing me more money. I had to buy a boat, do maintenance, do this and that. And he goes, I haven't raised prices on any of my goods because we already pay a lot to get it here anyway. And so, I guess there's very few, but I'm going to say, right, it's always going to happen from a small business. You're not going to see big businesses eat this cost. I mean, these small businesses are the ones doing the big donations, I mean, percentage wise, I can't say large, financial, but if anybody's watching, right, big shout out to Mike Rowe, Returning the Favor. It's giving back to people that are doing good things. I know that's not even close to tonight's topic, but so
it's a cool thing. Very, very, I respect him a lot. I like Mike Rowe a lot. Right. And I think Mike Rowe, I'm glad you brought him up because Mike Rowe is a pretty conservative guy, but he's a humanitarian, right? Very much. He's a human being. And for so many people, especially in the last few years, but for so many people, conservatism has become this whole, we haven't gotten to this point yet, but I just want to say where I think conservatism has gone and where the Trump supporters are, it's all about rights without responsibilities. And I think Mike Rowe is the kind of guy who realizes that, individual rights. And again, I'm a constitutional conservative, right? Like I'm a civil libertarian. And yet I think that the main thing that as a community that we have to remember is we all have individual rights, but we exercise those rights within our responsibility to the larger community, right? So for example, I have the right to bear arms and I carry a handgun, but I have the responsibility not to use it recklessly. Yeah. I have the right to drive a vehicle, right? But I have the responsibility not to mow down the kids in my neighborhood when I'm driving it. I have the right not to wear a mask, but I'm absolutely fucking going to wear a mask because I don't want to take the chance of making someone else sick. You see what I'm saying? It's our political system seems to be right now divided not between what I would consider to be conservatives and liberals. It's divided between people who are responsible and people who aren't. And I think that's, and I think then, and unfortunately, you know, and this gets back to you know, I think this really does impact the economic future of our country. We have to decide whether we're going to exercise our rights with responsibility or whether we're not going to exercise them with responsibility. Because if we're not, we're treading on authoritarianism, right?
You bring up being conservative, and again, I brought up lumber, but now I want to bring up another great one, right? One of my favorite ones, and gosh, all of us here shoot ammo, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ammo went up in price years ago, and
Obama. Obama.
Yep.
Because he was coming for your guns.
I don't know if you guys have seen the price of ammo or the scarcity of ammo right now.
Yep.
But you can't find it. It's ridiculously expensive. Now, David, you scrap. I scrap once in a while. I don't know if you two down there scrap anything, but right, scrap metal, I'm getting like 4 cents a pound right now.
Yeah.
And so
it's nothing.
Right. So you tell me how ammo has cost more money. No, these companies are just getting a heck of a lot more money. That's what it is, right? So the supply can stay there on a constant, and right. So it's a supply and demand.
Demand goes up.
They're scaring you by saying there's going to be no ammo.
Right.
Yeah.
They're scaring you by saying Joe Biden's coming for your guns. I've been alive 43 years, which means I've seen Carter, which I don't remember, Reagan, Bush, the first Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, and now Trump.
Do you think
nobody's come for one of my guns?
Do you think you've seen more Bush than Clinton?
I have not. There is no way in hell. Either one of them, in all honesty.
Sorry, I had to go there.
You know, and when we look at it, so at some point we're going to get into the social aspect of this upcoming election, but I'm just going to tread on that for a moment here.
But
yeah,
well, we're really going to get into it soon. So Amy Barrett was sworn in last night as the next member of the Supreme Court, and every comment I saw from a conservative supporter, which basically now is the Trump Republican Party supporter, you know, we'll just call them Trumplicans because there's really no more Republican Party, is this is great. Look at all the liberals cry.
Yeah.
When the fuck did this turn into a football game?
Right.
Fact, they're crying.
So
yeah.
Nick and I had this conversation at the beginning of the year, and he said to me, he goes, you know, you're probably the only friend I have that roots for a different football team, that when they beat my football team, I don't hear shit from you.
Huh.
Full disclosure, I grew up in Plainville, Michigan. The 3 times I grew up, you know, all those years, the Lions beat the Bears, because it was probably only 3 times. I caught constant shit from everybody as if they played the game. Irritated the hell out of me. So when my team comes in and beats the Lions, I have a Lions fan here in the corner. He's a good friend of mine. Nick, have you ever heard me say, boy, your team sucks?
I mean, I think we both agree that my team, I think you've agreed with me when we went 0-16.
Right, I agree with you, but I'm never the one to bring it up and say,
I don't think
anybody's today.
I don't think there's anyone anywhere disputing that the Lions suck, right?
Yeah. The 0-16 season was a great season. No, yeah, I say no. It's you know, no, right? The answer is just no.
Yeah, and this what we're dealing with now has turned into some kind of sporting event. Okay,
that's exactly right.
3 of us on this call dress up as Star Wars characters. Okay. Most of these people do not know anything about sports. Mike and I are probably 2 of the sportier people in our garrison.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know where the hell this came from, but politics is not a sport. This is people's livelihoods.
Right.
So
you know,
if you're electing a justice that has come out and said abortion's wrong, I'm not for abortion, that's scary to people, because again, I'm socially liberal, which also means, much like Mike in the bottom here, I'm for mind your own fucking business. Okay. I'm never
Yeah.
having an abortion. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your body. I'm never going to marry a dude. I'm not going to tell you who you should marry.
Well,
I'm gonna
it's
keep
hard.
my shit to myself.
I mean, you know, and people get pissed when they share it, right? So, right, I mean, pride. People get pissed. Why do they get their own day and Black History Month, and it just bugs me. So we are, now you've gotten me woken up, and sorry everybody. You know what? This rest of it is just gonna be about this, right? This is
53
where
minutes we did on money. There you go.
This is where my heart starts melting. Right? This isn't. I really don't swear on these things. I try not to, but tonight it's gonna happen, right? David said it, right? This isn't a fucking game. This is people's lives. When we talk about abortion, David, you said it the other day. You just said it. It's not my body. Who am I to judge? I'm getting so sick and tired of people thinking that people are going to go 9 months and have a fucking abortion, right? There's no sane person in this world that's going to do that, right? The sick fucking people are the ones that are killing their kids in a fucking bathtub, drowning 5 of them and getting off with fucking probation, right? Like, these are the sick fucking people, right? This doesn't happen on a constant basis, right? Abortions are things that happen, right? As sad as it is, right? I mean, you can get tested for things, and there's things where it's like, man, your kid's going to live a life that you just couldn't imagine. I mean, we're all healthy people, but I know if I end up a vegetable, right? Let's say I get into a fucking car crash and I end up a vegetable and have to be in a thing, or they can pull a plug on me. The answer is pull a fucking plug, because it's not the life I fucking wanted, right? And yes, who am I to judge what life this kid wants? Well, I'm the parent that brought him into the fucking world. And I don't know about you guys, but my mom said, you know what? I brought you into this world. I sure as shit can always take you out of it, right? I mean, yeah, you get yelled at.
It was
but
my dad, but yeah.
Right. Well, I say this is a thing, and so right, that choice. I mean, that choice, right? You're no sane person, no normal, right? Let's go with I don't care if you want to call it 80%, right? 10% are psycho and 10% of the other psycho. Like, forget that. But any sane person can understand. Hey, this is the lifestyle I choose to live, type thing. We all choose our own fucking life. I mean, we choose where we are, and it bugs me. You hit on one of my favorite topics, right? Gays, right? David, you're not going to marry a dude. That's completely fine, man. But you know what? There's plenty of people out there, plenty of men, plenty of women that are going to marry the same sex.
Not to interrupt, Nick. You went to a wedding, I know, in New York.
I've gone to lots of weddings.
You went to a wedding in New York, one of your absolute best friends.
Yeah.
Who did he marry?
He married another man who is a successful doctor, right? And they're happily married, been together, oh gosh, I think 5 years now, something like that.
Awesome.
Good, strong marriage?
Very strong. I mean, we talk. I mean, when I go bowling, right? I go bowl with this guy. I mean, the way I see it, and we're gonna talk about healthcare quite a bit, and but right, you've now just taken that amount of people, and everybody, oh, well, the percentage of divorces are going up. What the fuck does it matter? Like, oh man, the percentage just that doesn't play any effect on a president. It doesn't play any effect on anybody. Like, I don't care if divorce goes up or down. Like, people falling in love, who cares? Like,
we were 50% with just men and women.
Right? Like, So now we're at 60. I don't really care. Like, doesn't affect me. I mean, people aren't doing it for what it used to be. Yes, okay, you're correct. They're not doing it for the right reasons. They're doing it for the wrong reasons. They got me. I don't, and I tell people all the time, I don't give a shit if, let's say, my wife and I get divorced and I can only find my best friend who's single or whatever, right? I mean, and I go marry him just for insurance. Well, that's the problem. Like, when you go marry for insurance, I mean, I know plenty of people right now that are still married. I just talked to somebody just the other day. Oh yeah, I'm still married, but we're not together, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, insurance. Oh, well, I stay together for insurance and we need 2 incomes in the house. And I'm like, Jesus, like, so you're not happy. But the fact is like, if you just stay married because of insurance, I mean, it tells you where the money is. I mean, you're in healthcare here. So again, you've just cut so many people's lives, right? Like, now again, my best friend is married to a doctor, and let's all agree here that doctors are going to make really good money. So he doesn't have to work. Well, now this dude, I mean, granted, a doctor probably pay for private health insurance, but still, I have two friends. One's a carpenter, and the other one lays flooring. Let's say, this one flooring throws his back out like I am right now. He can get covered by insurance over here, but now he's screwed, right? Now we're going to go into so much debt because people aren't going to have insurance. People aren't going to be covered. Oh, go find a job. It's just, this bugs me so much with.
I can tell you as a again, a recovering Republican and a conservative I don't know where I fall on the political spectrum anymore because of what these Trumpicans have done. But anyway,
fuckers.
Yeah, as someone who's considered to be a conservative in the 1990s, what I can say is that the moment that government or private industry got involved in marriage, it had to be open to everyone.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start keeping score, setting tax policy or insurance eligibility and stuff like that, you have to open it to everybody. It no longer becomes a religious issue. So yeah, I thought it was really I love Pope Francis. I thought it was really awesome that he is now advocating for civil unions. He's not using the word marriage. That's absolutely his right. He is the head of a church that has more than 1 billion adherents around the world. He can talk about marriage as a religious institution with authority, right? But as soon as you bring that into the public realm, it has to be for everybody. Bottom line, it's no question.
Well, in full disclosure here, 2 of us are recovering Catholics.
Oh yeah, right. But so my church, the church that my church does not do homosexual marriage, but that doesn't mean that people who are gay can't get married. They can't get married in my church. But that doesn't mean they can't get married, because outside of the church, and when I say church, it could be synagogue, it could be any religious institution or facility, but that they don't have to allow that. I'm fine with that. But when it becomes a matter of law, it has to be allowed by everyone.
Correct.
You brought up Francis, and this is sad. Again, so 3 of us. I didn't know 3 of us were Catholics. Right. I went to a funeral just a few years back. And I remember, right. So, I'm sitting there and we're talking. It's like, I'm saying the words along, and I'm like, John Paul, our Pope, and Robert, our Bishop. And then like the dude, the father's up there and he's saying opposite words. And I was like, oh man, the times have changed. Like, I don't even know the people right now. Like that's how bad it is,
Right.
So, it's a Francis, our Bishop, or Francis, our Pope, and I'm like, oh man, okay, yeah, my bad. So, no, it's right right. So now the way I look at it is, right, when we talk again financially, the amount of people that are going to have to go into more debt because of medical bills, the amount of people. I mean, hopefully they either grandfather these people in. I don't know how that's going to work. Like, I don't know. I mean, we know that this new justice that's coming in literally just it's gonna be the whole turnover. It's gonna be the screw of everything. She's come out and say it, but are they just gonna on paper they're just gonna write it off? So like nobody has to technically pay the fee. I mean, people just they have to go change their last name again or something. Like, is that just gonna be free?
I don't know. Yeah,
where's this money coming from? What's gonna happen?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I think, I have a lot of gay friends that are very, very successzel. I was talking to one a month ago, and they said, yeah, my husband and I, depending on the election, and everybody, this is the thing. It's funny because I'm not a Trump fan, and I'm not a Biden fan. I want to be very clear about that. I don't call names type of a thing. I try not to. Yes, I love the memes and the jokes, and I think they're hilarious about anybody. But,
right, yeah.
But they said, yeah, my husband and I are thinking, depending on the election, we're probably going to end up moving to Greece because we just can't do it anymore. And people are like, well, bye, see ya, you got to go. And it's like, man, why would you want people to leave the greatest country?
Right? Yeah.
Not everybody's going to see.
Exactly.
Everybody's like, oh, I'm going, I hope these famous people go live to Canada. And it's just like, bye, see ya. man, like you got to look. I mean, to me, I just care about people. Like if there's something that's really bothering you, I got to figure it out, right? Like I don't treat everybody like a 2-year-old, but if my daughter's crying, I got to figure out why. If
The thing you're hitting on, Nick, is we don't have empathetic people.
then you don't have to be empathetic. You just have to be
do.
knowledgeable.
Well, again, I think David and
Do you think you have to be empathetic for a person to die?
No, I think you have to be
No.
empathetic to not care if somebody says, this sucks, I'm going to move out.
Well,
Well, I think
I mean,
it's back to the whole idea, right? Like when you're talking about people who think that their rights trump their responsibilities, and I use the word trump very deliberately right there, right?
Yep.
That their rights are more important than any responsibilities they have. Those people are stuck in an adolescent mentality, or worse, right? Or more like childhood. And so, yeah, we learn our empathy as we get older, right? Because we can start to realize that there's a world that exists beyond us. And what I'm really concerned about is, Nick, you talked about the 10% on the left and the 10% on the right and the 80% in the middle. I don't think it's really that way, because if you look at the numbers in terms of our politics, at least in terms of the numbers of voters, at least,
Sure.
it's, hopefully it doesn't translate into the population of a whole. We're talking more like about 40%, right? So the rational people in the middle are a lot smaller than what you described earlier. And what really scares me is that it's this 40% number has been pretty consistent, at least in terms of the electorate, that you've got 40% of people, and it could be 40% on both sides easily, that are stuck in some sort of adolescent, their psychological, social, mental, and intellectual development is stuck at something around adolescence or worse. And these people have the same rights as all the rest of us, but they don't take on the responsibility. And that, I think, putting everything else aside, getting back to the core economic and social things that are happening right now in our country, that's the problem, right? And you talked about all the people that have said all these wise things recently. I had a friend, I think she posted this yesterday on social media. Great friend of mine. Again, she's one of my also sort of a reformed Republican, right? That I went to college with, and she said, Biden and Harris are no more the cure than Trump is the disease.
Correct.
Right? These people are not, like you're absolutely right, Nick. These people are not our saviors. They're a reflection of who we are. And who we are, it's not a pretty picture, right? And that's the real worrisome thing, is that, you talk about the social implications, you talk about the financial and economic implications. Our politics, we get the people we deserve, not the people we want, right? And I think that the real problem here is these people reflect who we are as a people. And that, to me, is truly frightening.
So I have 3 thoughts. One is, Mike asked a question before we started, which I want to get to, and that's my last thought. The other 2 thoughts I have are this. So first off, Nick and I talking the other night, we brought up abortion because that's always a hot button issue. Mm-hmm. And the issue I have with conservatives, which, I know some conservatives that aren't batshit crazy, but the majority of them I know that are against abortion, they're not really pro-life. They call this pro-life. They're pro-birth. Okay, they want you to be born. But once you're born, you're on your own. Okay, no neonatal care, no preschool, no Head Start, none of that shit. No free lunches in school. You had that kid, it's your problem. Figure it out on your own. Mm-hmm. Yep. And that irritates me to my core.
Very interesting you say that, because I have a story related to that, but continue, please.
And the other one, so I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Jim, tell your story and it'll come back.
All right. So
Mike's question that was asked. That was your first and third.
That was my third, but Jim, go ahead, tell your story. I'll figure out my second.
Talking about that whole pro-life thing, right? And so Betsy DeVos, our infamous current education secretary, someone who I used to work with pretty closely back in the day when she was the national committee woman on the Republican National Committee, and she was also the chairman of Republican Party in Michigan. And around that time, I had chatting with her. This is also around the time when she was, her husband was running for the State Board of Education, and they were prepping him to run for governor of Michigan, which he did and lost to Jennifer Granholm. But talking about this issue of life, and David, no one I've ever talked to on the right has ever summarized it, what you just said, better than her. And I said, yeah. So she's talking not only about being pro-birth, but also about being against things like assisted suicide and things like that. And I said, but and again, I'm the naive 20-something at this time. I said, but Betsy, what about in the middle? And she said, well, that's not my problem. I said, yeah, but you're a billionaire. And she said, well, we want to make it as easy as possible for people to, pull themselves up. And she went into this whole litany of conservative tropes. But in my mind, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. If you're going to force people into this, you have to provide some sort of a, and maybe that's where my conservatism collapsed or began to collapse. But looking back on that was a watershed moment, not just for me, but I think she's, but her just callous disregard. Well, that's not my problem. In fact, I think she said that's not our problem, meaning conservatives. Like, we don't care. We literally don't care what happens. But as soon as that baby's born, if you kill it, it's murder. So
Right.
That's your problem.
David, did you think about that thought?
I did. So
Okay.
Jim
Good.
brought up a friend of his that, said Biden and Harris are not the cure.
Yep.
Absolutely correct. So I know what I hope for, and I had this conversation with Nick on Sunday. I had it with Mike when he was up watching football with me on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So really what we need to get to in this country is certain changes to the way our government works, okay?
Mm-hmm.
There is no reason that for all but maybe 7 years of my life, my representative in Congress should be Fred Upton, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not Fred, he's a nice man. He was the speaker at one of the epilepsy walks I did in Kalamazoo, and him and I talked on the way to our cars. Very nice person.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in office for like 35 years. Time to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Go do something else.
Yep.
Because there's no reason you should be in office for 35 years.
Nope.
There's no reason Upton should be in office for 35 years. There's no reason McConnell should be in office
Nope.
for 35 years. There's no reason a justice should get approved for their lifetime. If you haven't noticed, I'm wearing a Ruth Bader Ginsburg shirt, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I think she did so many wonderful things for women. I'm a coach of women. I'm a huge proponent of women. There's no reason that lady should have worked until she was 89 years old. She did it because she felt she had to.
Yep.
There's no reason she should have felt like she had to.
Right.
Well, I say, and even if you want to, let's say, right? Granted, she felt like she had to because she's seen where this world is going. But even if you want to and have to, I think change is, Donald Trump's voting for change, right? That's his biggest thing. And all right, so I have to put it out there to everybody, right? So David, your wife had asked me, we're sitting here drinking one night.
This is fantastic, by the way.
And
everyone I know, before Nick tells the story, everyone I know that votes Trump, their reasons are bullshit until Nick
Except
gave us
this
a
one.
reason.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
So everybody said, Don goes, hey, I don't know why anybody would vote for Trump. I can't support that guy and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I'm gonna let you know, right? I have a possibility to vote for Trump. And she was awed and she goes, how could you? And blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, so that I have two choices, right? I can care about my friends and I can care about everything of people, right? And I can kind of understand where we're headed. Or the one thing that Biden said, right, was he's getting rid of 1031 exchange and he wants to get rid of my write-offs for my business in general, right? Mm-hmm. So he wants to, in theory, right, make my business so I no longer am profitable and no longer can do it, controlling it. So the only person that's doing that for me is Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump is making sure that I don't have those things. Granted, everybody jokes because he paid $17 in taxes. I don't know how he got his write-offs, but I got way less write-offs than that. But still, I would literally be drained if I vote for Biden, right? Me as a person, me and my life, the way I feed my family, every part of it, I'm completely broke and I'm screwed, right? So, and then it keeps going and keeps going. And so, David and Dunn, as he said, right, he's never heard anybody actually give a prime example of why they would vote for Trump. And everybody always is like, well, I think all lives matter over Black lives, and he's going to make America great, and you can't describe how. And you know what? If you think America is great based off of its real estate write-offs, awesome, right? Yes, he's very much the one for you. If that's how I personally feel, I agree, right? So again, I have to vote for, do I care about the masses of this world, or do I care about myself and my real estate friends, right? I mean, it's a joke, and I'm an admin of a real estate page here in Grand Rapids, and my 95% of the group, honestly 95% of the group is Republicans, they're business owners, things like that. And they're like, hey, we should do a paintball fight, right? Republicans versus Democrats. and it was like
blue and red paint, right?
Right. Like, well, what side I'm going to have to be on. I mean, in theory, I have to, I can't vote for either. Right. And this is officially my first time ever saying it to people. Right. I have to vote for Jorgensen because I cannot give my money away and I cannot take my friends' rights away. So I have to go right in the middle. And and the other reason I have to do it is because you hear the amount of people, right, that talked about Bernie Sanders, and you hear the amount of people that kind of got on the Jorgensen thing. And if I don't become that one that starts to set the example, and let's say Jorgensen only gets 2%, well, next election, maybe Libertarian Party or whatever gets 5%, and people start seeing that this percentage is going up, and maybe they start letting them into the debate. You know what? I don't know if in my lifetime, but I'm hoping that my kids' lifetime, they eventually see the fact that, there's a chance to get an actual change instead of having this, let's call it 40, 40, and 20 in the middle, right? Let's hope that if everybody voted, because so many people are voting because they have to vote for Biden because they know that Jorgensen won't win, right? So they have to give their vote to Biden, and everybody votes for, a vote for Jorgensen is a vote for Trump. No, mine officially is not, right? Mine officially is for neither of the two of them because I can't, it makes me sick, right? Like, it makes me have to call my friends at 9 o'clock at night and have a 2.5-hour conversation figuring out I have to be who I am as a person. I have to be who I am as a man. I have to support the one person that actually doesn't want to screw me here and doesn't want to screw everybody else over here.
Well, and not to throw it out there, but you call your friend at 9 o'clock at night, and he was so excited because he was going to bed by 9:30, and he was still up at 11:30. I was so excited. I'm like, man, I'm going to be in bed by 9:30 tonight. And then they called, and my wife went to sleep, and I'm still up.
I do want to address what you just said, Nick, because I've, until this year, the last time I voted for one of the two-party candidates for president was in 1992. And I kind of felt like because I worked for HW that I should vote for him. But I do want to talk about that. But let's go to Mike's earlier question first. And then I'm also going to sneak off and grab another beer.
You do that.
Well, no, go ahead first.
Mike?
Well, my question was because, again, it's Amy Barrett being nominated or sworn in as the Supreme Court Justice.
Yep.
One of the many things Trump is attempting to do besides, delegalize abortion is get rid of parts or all of the Affordable Care Act. Now, I'm one that happens to have a lot of pre-existing conditions, and I know that's one protection that comes with the Affordable Care Act is that if I were to change jobs, I would still have my pre-existing conditions covered. So my question is, by just happenstance this year, my employer is choosing to switch carriers for insurance. So my question would be, if the Affordable Care Act were to be changed or, found unconstitutional in the next just couple of months, could my pre-existing conditions potentially no longer be covered?
So
David, I'm going to let you handle that from a healthcare policy perspective while I grab another beer, and then we can talk about the political ramifications of that.
sounds good. So first off, Mike, are they switching to Priority Health?
No, they're switching to Cigna.
So anyways, that doesn't help my company at all. I work for Priority Health. So here's the deal. When you are hired into a company, okay, you're under the company's plan. And they cover your pre-existing conditions. It really doesn't matter because, you're on the company policy. They offer you insurance. And as long as you're there, you get to have that insurance. Now, if Mike switched to a company that did not offer insurance or lost his job and he had to shop for insurance, he's pretty well fucked. Okay. He's going to have to go someplace and try to find insurance. And if they strike down the Affordable Care Act, first off, I don't care what Trump says. If they strike down the Affordable Care Act, existing conditions are gone because there are lobbyists out there for everything under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing they hate, as far as the healthcare lobbyists go, is the pre-existing condition mandate that was put in with the Affordable Care Act, because that made everybody understand that insurance is really expensive. So I work for the insurance company and I know what my company pays for me to have insurance. Okay. And I know what I pay. So next year I pay $12 a paycheck and they pay like $1,600 to cover my family until, my daughter drops off when she's 26.
Per paycheck or per year?
No, per paycheck.
They pay $1,600 per paycheck?
No, they pay $1,600 per month. I pay $12 per paycheck. $12.
Okay.
So if the Affordable Care Act goes, not only do the pre-existing conditions go, but the kids on until they're 26 goes, because that used to be, if you were a full-time student, you got to keep your insurance until 26.
To say we talked about that. Well, that's why I had to take a job.
Had to be
and full disclosure, our most popular podcast that we put out so far as just a podcast, not a YouTube, has been the health insurance episode, which I uploaded maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
That's been our most popular because people don't understand it. So if she's ripped off of my insurance goes down, I don't know, a couple $100 a month, maybe. So we're still talking $1,400 a month. They're paying for me to have insurance. So when everybody sits there and complains, oh my God, the Affordable Care Act is so expensive. And they don't say the Affordable Care Act because they don't know. They say Obamacare. Obamacare is so expensive. I have to pay $1,200 a month. Yeah, you do, because that's what a company would pay for you. So You're right, it's expensive and it sucks. But that's the world we live in. You could live in Canada where you pay 50% of your income to taxes and you never pay an insurance bill. And you're going to tell me, well, in Canada, socialized medicine sucks because you have to wait 6 months for an appointment. So here's the deal. I live in the United States of America. My wife has had a doctor for about, 12, 15 years, somewhere in that range. And she got a phone call from him the other day. She needed a procedure done. And the office said, yeah, we have to cancel your appointment next week. And she goes, okay, well, when can you get me in? And they said, May. And she goes, that's bullshit. I need to be seen now. And they said, well, we can see you in May. So we'll see you in May. And she went, fuck you. I'm going to go find a new doctor.
Yeah, right.
So you can tell me all you want, but you have to wait forever to see a doctor in a socialized medicine world. But you have to do that in the United States right now.
Problem though, David, and I
how much money you have.
Well, yeah. Problem in with places like Canada, and Canada specifically, not Britain, because Britain has a sort of a combination.
Yep.
But the problem with what you just said is that in Canada, you can't go find another doctor.
Sure.
Well, and so and I'm not hating on, let's say, Trump for this statement, but it happens to be that he's president. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he is against COVID, doesn't think it's a thing, or his party has now said, we're just not going to care about it. Okay. So the question was brought to me by my friend, hey, what do you think about Trump getting COVID? And I said, that's really sad, and I hope that he gets through it, right? Because that's who I care about everyone. Like, I don't ever want to see anybody get sick and die from it. And he goes, that's real mature. He goes, but I'm seeing, he goes, I'm hearing that people are like, oh, I hope he dies from it. And I was like, again, that goes back to that. I mean, you're saying 40%, Jim. The 40% cycles, 40% cycles. Like, I told him, I said, it's funny because I have a lot of Democratic people on my thing, and all I woke up to that morning was prayers for Trump. Hope he makes it through. Prayers for Trump and stuff like that. And I was like, oh man, like I'm not seeing it. And he goes, well, what do you think? And I said, look, I'm gonna be honest with you, right? Trump is the United States president. Okay. He is going to have the greatest healthcare, the greatest doctors, the greatest everything. He is going to have the most service. So he's going to get through it, in my opinion, very, very quickly, very strongly. He's going to, he's not in that high age range, that 70 or 80, whatever. I think it's 80, like where, you have a high percentage. I was like, and I was like, the whole point of it, right? The whole point of it isn't to, and what everybody's forgetting is, right, we're trying to slow it down because of the amount of people that are going to end up in a hospital at one time, right? So, granted, Grand Rapids can hold, I don't care, 20,000 people at max capacity throughout all of our hospitals. Well, we have 150,000. If all 150,000 of us get it, I mean, we're gonna be screwed. I said, so let's put it this way, right? If, let's say Trump is in Metro Grand Rapids, he goes to the hospital in Metro Grand Rapids, and let's say we have 20 ventilators and he's 21st in line. There's not a damn chance that this dude doesn't have a ventilator, right? Like,
somebody's getting booted off for that.
Right. Like, he gets this guaranteed. So the idea is we don't want to have to pick between grandma, mom, and daughter, who all three in the same household get sick. Who do you pick, right? You got those people that say, well, the daughter has the most time to create a life and better. Everybody goes, well, the grandma has the wisdom to create it. Well, the mom has to, make sure grandma gets
economic factor.
And also has to raise the daughter. Like, you can't, like, I'm not going to be the person to pick. That's why I'm not in the medical field. You know what I'm saying? But so, right, Trump gets through it, and I'm very glad that he got through it healthy and he's back on it. But then to come out and say, well, it's not that bad. Screw it. Here we go. Dude, like, this, come on. You got to understand that, right? You're one of, right? We hear stories from so many people. Hey, like the one guy, I guess maybe I'm only one that, the one guy goes into the hospital and dies within 24 hours, and he got it from his brother who was asymptomatic.
Right.
Right. Like, I mean, we don't know, we hear it. Do I wear my mask? Yes. Right. It's just, again, Jim, you said it earlier, right? Because I care about others. I don't want blood on my hands.
Right.
Call me a pussy all you want.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, right?
Yeah, I'll sign up to be a sheep in that flock any day, right?
I just, I find, I've never served in the military. I'll be the first to admit that. I'm not sitting here saying it, right? But, last I heard, it's funny because, most conservative people are very military people, and, every brother feels for their brother. And it's like, why aren't we all brothers? Because we didn't all go to boot camp, because we are all people in the U.S. who should care about all people in the U.S. Yes. Is there shitty people that are going to go rob stuff? Do I care about you? I mean, theoretically, I still care about you, and I hope the cop doesn't fucking shoot you. But I still think that if the cop hits you in the jaw while he's getting you into the car, you know what? Like, I don't really care. I don't care, But the aspect is if you're taking life, right? Conservative people, they're David, who was the guy that killed people because they wanted to? Jack Kevorkian.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Kevorkian, what a horrible person and stuff like that. And it's like, man, to me, like, people asked for that, and that's what they wanted, right? They didn't want to live life as a vegetable, just like, we've talked about. I don't want to. But you're the one that's not helping this person not become a vegetable. You're the one that's not, hey, I wouldn't want anybody to be in that spot. So I get so frustrated with how people are seeing, again, everybody's a sheep because you follow. No, people are generally just caring. And if you look at each situation, how it is, we find that. So
No,
who
you're
doesn't want to
absolutely
see who doesn't want to see a cat butt right on
right. I
camera?
know exactly.
All of you do. That's why he's there.
Yeah,
So, Nick, I think you'll enjoy this.
I probably won't.
I think you will. Because you talked about it a minute ago. So I've been fortunate. I've gone to Hawaii 6 times in my life. Every time I've gone, they use the same joke.
So good.
I'm glad it's good.
Oh, good.
They use the same joke. They call everybody cousin.
What's up, cousin?
Everybody is their cousin. You know why everybody's your cousin?
Because
Everybody's family, baby.
We all have the same uncle. Uncle
Uncle.
Sam.
Yep.
Fact. Yep. No, it's
And that's how they treat you. They treat you as family when you're there because we all have the same uncle.
Aloha.
well, I think they treat you as family because they want your money and they have to treat you as
Might be some of that too.
yeah, let's say. No, you know, I think my issue is right when we look at Biden, right? He wants to raise taxes on people that make over $400,000 in a year, and I've lost a couple friends on Facebook, because when Bernie Sanders was running, I made a post, which was one of my very few political posts, and I said it was ridiculous that he wants to tax anybody at 51%. And it was, I don't know, it was some ridiculous number. I don't care if it's $1 million a year. And I said that this is crazy. I don't think anybody should be taxed that high. And they're like, well, if you're making that much money, I said, look, you should never take home less than half of the money you make. Never. Like, that's my personal opinion. If you want to say 49.9%, I'm probably a little bit there, but 51%, I'm not going to do it. I'm 50%, I'm not going to do it, right? Anything less than 50. If you're going to take home half of what you make. Now, granted, if he also put out this entire statement thing that said, hey, after 51%, you're not going to get your deductions, you're not going to get this, you know, I mean, granted, that 51 wasn't going to look like 51 after it was all done. But the idea to me is 51% is just out of range, right? I mean, you say, hey, Jim, I think you said it right, where, you know, the top 8 people, like you can't spend it in 10 generations or something like that.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's insane. I
but-
up a number, but yeah, it's an insane amount of money.
But still, like, I mean, I personally don't feel that anybody should, right? Anybody should put in 100% of anything and get less than 50% back out of it. I mean, that's just my opinion. People have built up this amount of time. If you said, hey, you know what, errors, right? Like the Waltons errors shouldn't, you know, they should start being taxed at a higher percent because they're not doing shit with their life except for living off of, you know, granddad's money. Dude, I'm totally all about that, right? Like, you've done nothing to keep stimulating the economy. Somebody else did it before you. I think first time, like Bezos, right? I mean, he's the first person to do Amazon. Now, if he passes that along, dude, raise taxes on that next person, right? Because that's the cost of that. Because for making it so successful, I mean, that's my opinion again.
So I have 2 huge issues with Reagan. Mike and I talked about this the other day.
Reagan.
My first huge issue with Reagan.
Doesn't know how to take a bullet.
No,
Okay.
it's AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
AIDS was a gay disease. He didn't care. Fuck it. He's never going to talk about
wait
AIDS.
Wait a minute. So hang on a second here.
What?
We had somebody who ignored a plague essentially, and you don't approve of that. Okay. Oh.
I do not.
Right? Why would you? Right? So we have somebody else who's ignoring a plague. Okay.
I don't agree that AIDS was just a gay disease because
No, it wasn't.
everybody gets AIDS now. And my other issue with Reagan is the rewriting of the tax code. So Nick says nobody should have to pay 51%. You're absolutely right. So the way the tax code used to work was if you made up to $10 million, your tax bracket was, I believe it was around 39%.
Mm-hmm.
For everything you made over $10 million, you paid 70% of that into taxes. So if you made $11 million, you paid 40% off the first 10 mil. You paid 70% off the 11. And Nick and I talked about this the other day, and you have to ask yourself, how much is enough? I know with $11 million, I'm pretty well set. If I'm making 11 million a year,
But
if I'm not donating 70% of that $1 million, I'm an asshole.
but you get to choose that. You
I
get to
do
choose.
get to choose that, but I have no problem if the government says, you know what, I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna give it to poor people. Or I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna put it into healthcare.
My issue is I should be able to choose where that goes.
I have no issue with them choosing that for me.
It was mine. I earned it, or my people that I hired, the people that I hired. earned it.
Understood. The problem is, Nick, you and I would absolutely sit there and say, here, take this money and do some good with it.
Hang on though.
Yep, go
Time
ahead.
out for a second. If you make a charitable donation of that money, you're choosing where it goes.
Yep,
And then you're not being taxed on it.
correct.
So that's kind of the same thing, right?
Correct.
So you can if you choose not to give it away, then I think, I mean, I don't necessarily know that. I have to think about this for a bit, but theoretically speaking, then it goes to the government they choose. So I think you do have it's like you have the right of first refusal, right?
Right.
You can say, I have the right to say that my money's going to go here, but if I choose not to do that, then the government's going to confiscate it and they're going to do something else with it. So yeah,
You know
maybe
what?
okay.
I know what Nick is as a person. So I know Nick went out one day around Grand Rapids and handed out pizzas to homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
So I know Nick is going to do what's right.
Nope.
He's going to.
Nope. I want to stop you right there. Number one, everybody that's watching, this officially was not for homeless people. Yes, does Grand Rapids have a lot of homeless people? I wanted to feed people, right? If you were out there jogging, granted, who's going to stop and get pizza? But this pizza was for any person that stopped by.
I would do
right?
it though.
If Jim's seen it on Facebook back in the day, hey, Nick's handing out pizza here, and if you were hungry, if you wanted a free lunch, if you wanted something, blah blah, that pizza was not necessarily for homeless. Yes, it just happened, right? I'm gonna go to a place where I know it's gonna go, but
Right.
my intention was to feed people.
But many of them were homeless.
Yeah, so let's be honest.
It turned out that way. But I would
So,
absolutely,
again-
if I was just jogging along and somebody's giving me pizza, I'm taking the damn pizza. That's all I'm saying. I'm eating the frickin' pizza.
Well, I remember Dawn came to me and said, hey, we're going to order a couple pizzas for Nick. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? She's like, he's giving pizza to homeless people. I'm like, oh, yeah, order a couple pizzas. Go for it.
Yeah.
So I know Nick's going to do what's right with his money. But for every Nick, there's 100 Bezos who's going to go, hey, I'll give your money to charity, but my money, that's mine. Fuck you.
Well, no, yeah. But I think what I'm trying to say, David, is that Bezos has that choice, and if he chooses not to do it, then you can, yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's I think taxes. So David, you had a second point, right? One was Reagan for the taxes. Oh, and the second
Yeah, the other one was AIDS.
AIDS.
Okay, yep. Sorry. I it's hard because we talk about back in the day, right, where Medicare came into play, right? So, and yes, it happened to a lot of African Americans. It also happened to some whites, some Asians, and everything like that, right? Like, hey, if you made less than a certain amount of money, we're going to give you Medicare and Medicaid. And what I find, is at this time, African Americans were of the, they didn't have the amount of generations to come out of slavery. I mean, whites became rich because of, right? I mean, on African backs.
Backs of slaves, absolutely. Yep. My family was involved in that.
Right. So we go into it, but then we handed out free money, right? And so and we talk about it all the time, when you're handed something, you're not going to treat it the way as you earned it, right? So when you find that, hey, I can do it the easy way and just get handed these things, I get very frustrated with that. So I think that people should have to work for things. Everybody I believe everybody has those opportunities for things. We get pissed. People get pissed all the time where it's like, hey, you're over here making 20 grand a year or 40 grand a year off of all your, your free housing, your food vouchers. I that was the whole point of my buddy's topic. That's what it was. So it was right. The top 8 people make more than 200,000 or 200 million people in the U.S. combined, and we're getting pissed off about the lady who's buying a cookie at the store with food stamps.
Yep.
It was like, we're mad about that one, but we're not pissed about the 8 people that literally make more than 200 million of us combined. That was the whole thing. But yes, we got a stimulus. All of us got a stimulus. Everybody in the U.S. got the money. I mean, even technically, Bill Gates, right?
No, the stimulus.
Or no, so it was 175,000 and less, right?
Yeah.
So, right, but I mean, those people, we all got it, and so the aspect is, it's another handout, right? And it's to get by. And when you're jobless, yes, sometimes you need that little bit to get by. I think they did it really well with choosing that 175,000 or so, right? Because I mean, normally the people above that are financially smart enough to make decisions. So,
well, I think what happened there was, though, the problem I had with that, like, and as David said, was that comes to something like $5 a day, right? You're not making like, so $1,200 maybe. And again, I live in the suburbs in West Michigan, so I have a pretty, moderate housing costs. I live in a nice house, but I know what my son's rent is. He's 20 years old, living off on his own. That would not cover 2 months of my son's rent, nor would it even cover a month of my mortgage, right?
It wouldn't cover 2 months rent into any of my properties or the properties that I know.
Right.
I think like the cheapest house I know of, like college kids are renting for like what, $450 bare minimum for a room.
Yeah, but that's how many kids per house, right?
Yeah, like five kids a house.
Yeah,
like,
so
like maybe 2 months for like a college kid.
Yeah. Good point, right? So you got somebody out at Grand Valley State or even at Michigan State or whatever, and maybe that's 2 months for them. Maybe 3 at the.
I don't know any 3.
No. Okay, all right, yeah, but it's So.
No, and I think that's so I'm not on the thing. The problem is I don't think there's accountability for giving away free things, and I think that's something that needs to happen, right? Like, if it's like a child, right? If I give my daughter money, it's only after she does something for me, right? And I think America needs to hold that to a thing where, hey, if I'm giving you free housing, you need to give me something, right? Like you need to give me proof that you're trying to make America better. You're getting food. You can't. There's got to be a way, and I don't know the answer. Everybody out there, I don't know the answer of how you're going to have proof, and it'll create a job for somebody to track stupid proof of something. Like, we watched the Netflix document of jail systems, right, and how they're using people to stimulate the economy and use cheap labor and free
labor, basically.
Yeah. So, I think if you're getting something, unless you're like, I feel like even physically disabled people, like there's still something they can give back in some way, shape, or form. Like, I don't know what the answer is. Everybody.
Well, I had a cousin who was paraplegic, and he was an aircraft mechanic in the Air Force, and then he got in a car accident. But then he started rebuilding carburetors. This was back in the day when carburetors were a thing. So yeah,
with
I'm
his
an old
mouth?
guy, right?
With his mouth?
No, he was paraplegic. I'm sorry. He's paraplegic, not quadriplegic. So
not quad. I'm thinking quad.
So he had full use of his body from the waist up, but so he started to rebuild carburetors and do other things. So yeah, he absolutely had something to contribute. I think the vast majority of people have something to contribute. And one of the things I think that kind of dovetails with what you're saying, Nick, is there's often this I think especially on the left, this knee-jerk reaction to compare the United States to other countries. And I think that's a big fallacy for a number of reasons, right? First of all, the United States, in terms of population, is a large country. you can't say that our healthcare system should be like Sweden or Denmark, because it just doesn't scale up that way, right? So those people can pay whatever they pay, percentage they pay in taxes, and they can have socialized medicine. But then you have to scale that to the size of America. And not only that, but the United States is pretty unique in the sense that we treat old age like a disease. And most other countries, especially outside of North America, most other countries treat old age like old age, right? So in Sweden and Denmark and other, Ukraine and Russia, if someone is 80 some years old and they get cancer, they're not going to get the most, they're not going to get extraordinary experimental life, saving treatments, right? They're going to be basically, made comfortable and allowed, and nature is going to be allowed to take its course. So the cost of some of these social programs in other countries is not comparable to what Americans would expect. My mom was 79 years old. She died of cancer, and she died. It was actually kind of a very sudden thing. Her treatments were very expensive because of other factors in our healthcare system. But at the point that she died, none of us would have expected, the hospital to do millions of dollars worth of healthcare to save her, right? But a lot of people do expect that. And I think that's one fallacy. And the other thing is, in places, that where I think especially the left makes a big mistake, is in comparing the United States. Our economies are much, much different, right? So for example, you look at someplace like Switzerland, you talk about giving people something for nothing. Switzerland, I believe, recently did a basic income experiment where they guaranteed everyone something like a minimum of what we of the equivalent of about $3,000 in monthly income, no matter what. But also look at Switzerland, and when COVID-19 hit, their mask compliance rate was well north of 90%.
Yeah.
So that's much more of a sort of communal, collective mentality as opposed to the individualism in the United States, right? So in the United States, that didn't work. Well, to your point, giving a lot of people $3,000 in income, a lot of people, quite frankly, are going to go out and blow that, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to go toward making America better. Whereas in Switzerland, you can give somebody $3,000 in minimum income, and they're going to do the right thing. They can be counted on to do the right thing. The United States, we can't be counted on to do the right thing, right?
I want to go back to where I was talking about giving free money. I mean, we give free money to people that aren't doing things, and then I go back to deductions and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is nothing against farmers. I love farmers, right?
Yep.
But we give so much to farmers, right? And we have to, because we have to feed America, and everybody takes so much pride in, pride our farmers. And I do, right? Thank you so much for everything that you guys do. Mm-hmm. You're out there early in the morning. But you look at it and it's like, okay, they're getting so much money to stimulate, to feed us. And without them, we wouldn't eat. But we have a problem with feeding a person. And again, it's usually the people that, again, usually, not everybody, usually the people that have a problem with giving the free money are also the people who are pro-life,
Mm-hmm.
who are, and it's like, oh, well, what if they become the next big thing? Well, then why aren't you're willing to give this farmer who's doing whatever, why aren't you willing to give this kid
exactly
that exact same thing for however long, until they become a farmer, till they become a doctor, till they become something big with their life.
Yeah.
And chances,
it's an investment in the future, right?
Right. Like, but so we're willing to do it on certain things, but we're not willing to do it on other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it fully bugs me. You brought up Betsy DeVos. It's one of my big frustrations, right?
Mm-hmm.
For how much money her family has, I feel like she's dumb as shit. I just do. I don't understand anybody that wants complete privatization. I think your community builds up around you. My wife and I have, because again, I come from I probably do have more of a conservative mindset than I should with my wife, but Again, we're going to talk local here. We look at East Grand Rapids, right? They have a sailing club. They have an equestrian team. They have, the nicest everything. I mean, this is where wealthy folk live.
Mhm.
Unless you're on Lake Michigan in Holland, but
which is where Betsy DeVos has a home.
right, of course. I mean,
Right.
yeah, say,
Yeah.
but but you look at it and it's like, okay, but a lot of theirs comes from donations, right?
Mhm.
And you look at college teams, right? You look at Michigan, where does their money come from? Boosters, right? Wealthy people who
Yep.
put money back.
Yep.
And so to me, it becomes, it's not that the government's funding all of this, right?
Mhm.
It's that the people. So we looked at a house when I was younger, right, in East Grand Rapids, because we were thinking ahead for our child and where she should go to school. And I like East Grand Rapids and I want her to have the best opportunities. And we found the house that we absolutely loved. And it was, let's say I live in a $200,000 house here, and I looked at a $200,000 house there, which was ridiculous to find, low economy. But taxes there were $9,600 a year.
Wow.
Where my taxes here are $2,200.
Mm-hmm.
Now a year, right? Like, I mean, so I'm paying 3-4 times, 3.5 times more monthly.
Right.
I mean, it was the same as a mortgage payment here at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and so you have to, if you want bigger and better things, you have to pay for it. And these people do through taxes. These people do through different things, right? I mean, again, we talk about Canada, right? They want free healthcare, they pay for it. Go. I remember the first time I was dumb as shit. I didn't buy it because I had Google back then. But I was like, it was what 99 cents for gas, and I was like, dude, why didn't everybody come over here? I was like, oh, that's per liter, right?
Yeah,
and
99 Canadian cents per liter, right?
Yeah, I say per liter, and it's like it takes 3.2 liters to equal like 1 gallon or something like that. And I was like, back then gas was like $1.20 here in America, and it's like $3.50. I was like, oh, never mind. I'll fill back up in Detroit. I'm like, why don't Canadians go over here?
You have to do a lot of complicated math in Canada to figure out you're getting screwed on gas, right?
Yeah, well, so even at their ATMs, I think I paid $20 in ATM fees to get $20 out of the ATM.
Exactly, right.
So I lost out of the casino anyway.
But their money is really cool looking, so it's worth it.
So no, but Betsy DeVos, right? She just she'd rather have people pay for themselves than support the people that she's choosing to keep alive. If that if that's making sense, right? She's forcing people to keep people alive, and big percentage of those are the ones who are struggling, right? I'm not going to say that there's not rich people out there having abortions, and I'm not going to say that there's not poor people out there having right? There's probably, we could throw out scenarios, and we don't want to do this, right? We don't, but like, think about it. Every aspect of somebody's life, there's probably something there that causes why this happens, right? And who are we to? But you look at inner cities, and their education level just isn't the same as the next tier up. And then so for everybody watching, I guess, right? So inner city of Grand Rapids, which has now become good, the Grand Rapids School District has gotten better. But you go Detroit, Grand Rapids was maybe above that, right? I mean, it was still garbage. And then you kind of maybe went to Godwin, maybe to Kelloggsville, maybe to Granville, and then you popped up to like East Grand Rapids, right? I mean, they set the precedent of like what a good school was. I mean, we have private, so we have charter things here, right? Black River is number 3 in the nation for school. You have to guarantee that you get accepted. You don't have to go to college. You have to get accepted into a college in order to graduate, right? Like these people, right? They harp on education, and I think that we are one of the lowest educated countries for how wealthy and how knowledgeable we are. We just don't force it on everybody, right? So if you're going to force it, make it a big thing. Like support everybody to make sure they have a good education.
So not that I want to divulge off of this, but for a minute, let's go, since we're talking about the boss and pro-life. So let's say they take up Roe and they decide, because they have a 6-3 majority, that they can get rid of Roe now, and we're getting rid of
everybody. It's Roe versus Wade, right? So you guys can look it up. Roe,
1973.
So they're going to get rid of it, and now abortion is illegal. Okay, so let's just for a minute think about that. So I'm 10 years old. The movie comes out. It's called Dirty Dancing. And I remember a scene where baby went and got her dad because somebody had something happen and she was going to die and blah, blah, blah. I'm 10. I don't know that she had an abortion and by some backdoor doctor that mutilated her and shit. Because I'm 10. No 10-year-old knows what the hell's going on. Mike and I had this conversation the other day. He was what, like 12, 13?
Mm-hmm.
And probably in the same situation. He doesn't necessarily know what the hell's going on. So here's the deal. They outlaw Roe. They're not getting rid of abortions. They're getting rid of safe abortions. They're killing women.
What happens if Roe versus Wade gets overturned, then it goes back to the states.
It does.
So then now you have an interesting dynamic in that, unlike in 1973 when this was passed, it was a different world, right? Now you're going to have states where it will be legal. You'll have states where it will be illegal. You'll have states where with various forms of regulations, but it doesn't necessarily end legal abortion. What it does is throw things into chaos. And again, getting back to this whole idea that the current president thrives on chaos, it's going to just create more chaos, right? So yeah, you'll have places like Mississippi and Alabama where there are already laws on the books that are being challenged that have basically made any form of abortion illegal and punishable as a crime, all the way to places like California and Massachusetts where it's subsidized by the state government. So that's where we're left with that.
Yep.
I want to put this in perspective for some people. Right? Guess what he's describing is when you look back just a few years ago, because this is still brand new, where gay marriage is a thing.
Mm-hmm. Same thing.
Okay?
Yep.
So you had a few states that allowed it, right? I mean,
Yep.
your East and West Coast, New York and
Mm-hmm.
California and things like that. And one of my proudest moments was, I'd start having friends post, "Hey, I'm not going to ask any questions, but yeah, you've officially lived with me in my residence, right? If that's what you want, right?" So Michigan took a long time to get there. But you'll find states will follow what the masses are, right? They call us sheep, but I mean what the masses
exactly. Yeah.
Kind of what happens. So I'll put it out there, right? If Michigan becomes one of those states that let it happen, man, my house is filled with 1,000 people, and I've met you from day one.
Yeah.
But we go back to I think David and I, when we talked about abortion, right? We talked about China, right? You look at China, and abortion is technically illegal. I mean, right? You can get killed for it. But look at the amount of men that are in China. Why? Because Chinese, they want the name to live on forever, so they have men. Well, guess what happens? I mean, your backdoor abortions for because you can do an ultrasound to figure out what the sex is, and if it's a woman, they terminate it. So they've made it illegal and things like that, and you're only allowed one child. So it's you're stepping on so much to make it happen. I mean, right? I assume California will keep it legal. I assume New York will come along because they're open to these things, but you'll find people that will move and make it happen, right? I mean,
yeah, but not only that, but then you're talking about people, and which is the case now with some of these state laws who have functionally been shut out from this decision, because for example, I think I don't know if I'm kind of making this up a little bit, but I believe it's Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and it may be some combination of those or whatever, have passed laws that say, well, you have to be within, the doctor has to have admitting rights to the local hospital, or you have to be within, certain distance from a hospital or whatever, which has already functionally shut out people in rural areas from being able to, to make this decision safely. And then, so then what do you do? So if you're a 16-year-old girl, and I'm just going to lay this out there, you're a 16-year-old girl living in rural Alabama who's been raped by her uncle and gets pregnant, what do? You can't go to Michigan, right? You can't go to Montgomery or Tuscaloosa or Birmingham, you're fucked
Yep.
in every sense of the word.
Well, and everybody, they put that up there and they're like, well, that doesn't happen all the time. Yes, it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Touchy subject, right? Black Lives Matter. I mean, right? Yes, black people don't die every single time, but it happens, right? I mean, it's a thing. Like,
Exactly.
I wish people would open their eyes and understand that, look, not every situation fits the same person. This is America where we're allowed to be who we want and how we want to be. So now let that be a thing, right? Because we are not robots. We are not all the same. We are not there.
Exactly.
Like, you don't know this person's situation. I don't know if she got raped. I don't know if she is doing it because she wants to. I don't know. I don't know if it's the $1 million person that just says, hey, I don't want to drag my name through the mud that I had out of wedlock. I don't know if it's the 16-year-old that got raped by her uncle. Like,
you don't know, right? You don't know if that's the current president who's paying for abortions that he's, from women he's knocked up along the way, right?
Right. I don't know that. Like, and who am I to ask that, right? If you go to a private island and get caught there on a constant basis with photos happening, you know what? It comes out and I get to be the guy to go, no, that didn't happen, or yeah, it did. Yep. But you know what? It sucks. It sucks to say, right? It doesn't impact my life. It tells me who you are as a person, but it doesn't impact my life.
Yep.
I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to hang out with that person on a constant basis.
Well, and what we should be in this country is celebrating diversity, but we don't do that.
No.
There's that meme that keeps going around of, I haven't unfriended anybody because of their political viewpoint. Can you say the same?
No, fuck no.
Full disclosure, fuck you. I've unfriended a lot of people and they can kiss my ass. I'm not friends with them anymore. I'm not friends with them on Facebook. I'm not friends with them in real life, and they can all kiss my ass.
I have not. I have not. I guess I can officially say that. I say, because I will question a lot of things, right? Again, I will question so much. And if you have a great point, just like, right, like if I left the whole thing, this is why I would vote for, yes, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump to Dawn, right? She would have thought so much different of the aspect, but when you give an okay answer, and to me it was right. To me, it's justified. Apparently, to you guys, right? You said, "Holy crap, that's an actual concern," right? We're still friends because of it, but it's the only one thing that I have to do. So I will always question. Now, if you're sitting here saying this, yeah, I will think differently of you, but I haven't unfriended anybody.
Full disclosure: my best friend is a Trump supporter. Why? Mike knows. Abortion.
Yep.
He's pro-life, and he will vote for anybody that says they're pro-life. Now, I know as well as anybody, Trump's not pro-life.
No.
My favorite question: how many kids does he have?
None.
How many has he adopted?
None.
Right.
How many wives?
None.
How many relationships?
I don't know, like a lot, but none serious.
So right. I mean, this guy, right? This guy who has nothing to do with family aspects of things wants other people to be forced into it. Right. I mean, I'm the first. I know this guy, and I'm sitting here going, dude, if you got stuck with this crazy woman and you had this kid, you would be the first person to bitch and complain that you had to pay child support your entire life while living in the basement. I'm not saying you go for an abortion, but I'm just saying, like, you would be the first person to be like, oh, my taxes are so high, or this, like, I have to pay what for how much for who? Like, I don't get to see this kid. Like, it's hilarious to me. The people that are pro-life and what their life situation is, right? Like, honestly, if you're the person who has adopted any amount of kids and you're pro-life, cool, man. Like, I get why you say it, because you're willing to adopt. Not if you're willing to adopt out. I mean, granted, you're probably pro-life throughout the whole world, but not if you're willing to adopt outside of the country. But like, if you're willing to support the people that are here and build up the USA and how great it is, I'm gonna give you credit for it.
Well, and when we look at it, so I'm pro-choice. I know Mike's pro-choice. And I said it earlier, we're pro mind your own fucking business, but when it comes down to pro-choice, I don't feel I should be able to tell any woman what they should do with their body. But if my wife got pregnant, which she can't, but if she did, and she said, I want to have an abortion, we would have a long conversation about it because I don't want her to have an abortion. If my daughter comes and says, hey, Dad, I'm pregnant, we're going to have a long conversation because I don't want her to have an abortion. Now, if she decides I can't do this, that's on her. I'm going to support her because she's my daughter and she's made a thoughtful decision and I made my case and that's the end of the day.
But what if the husband wants it? Or a
Wants-
boyfriend? Or a person?
Again, it's not my body. I'm going to support her.
See, and I think that it takes two people to make the decision. So, right, if you say you don't know who it is and you can prove it, yes, right? But like, I mean, we have to have a quick court cases and things like that. But I'm the kind of person where, right, it took two to make it. It takes two to make that decision. And, you know, that's who I am, right? We watch Maury Povich and you got the one chick who's been on there like 36 times, doesn't know who the daddy is. But, you know, I think if you say, hey, this is the first one and it goes to a paternity and you can draw it and figure it out. But I don't know. I think like me as a father, if my wife would never, right? But if she did and I wanted it, I think I have the right to raise my kid, or if my wife, vice versa, right? Let's say I'm a man and I wanted my wife to have one. No, she has that choice, right? Like, granted, women have that choice now, but I think it becomes both, definitely both.
Yeah, I think in a healthy relationship, certainly, it should be that conversation, right? Like you said, David. However, it's that's why these are difficult things, right? And these kinds of things are certainly above my pay grade. However, having said that, I don't think we should be appointing people to the Supreme Court who have a dogmatic view either way. And I think that's part of the problem that we're facing right now, right?
I just want to say I like beer.
Also true.
Very true.
Me, Donkey Dog, Doug, Greg, Squee, I like beer. Jesus.
Well, I mean, to add something to all this, we talked about the Supreme Court today. And, there's all these questions coming out, and neither Biden nor Harris will make a statement about, loading the Supreme Court. But basically, that's just what Trump did.
Yeah.
He basically just ensured a majority for probably the possibly next 50 years.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that are going against, I personally, right? So I don't care who Trump puts into office or puts into the Supreme Court. I care because I care about my friends. But right, when we look at these people, we need to. I personally think we need that's why we need term limits, because you look at the guy I just mentioned, right? Brett Kavanaugh, right? Him and his drunk friends and having a chance of rape, and has proven that he has not held himself to make the right decisions at all parts of his life. We're allowing this guy to make decisions for the rest of us. And, I think that you need to represent yourself. And everybody says, oh, well, your past isn't your past. Okay. Well, if I went out and, I don't know, if I went out and got drunk and hit somebody yesterday, well, my past is in my past. That was yesterday. You guys have to forgive it. But, oh, it's just college time. No, he was going into law this entire time. His entire career of what he was doing, this wasn't like he did it when he was 12.
Well,
this
no.
was his career choices all along.
No, actually, Nick, though, what he was accused of happened when he was in high school. And he was underage at that time. So I think there is a little bit of a buffer there, right? Because he wasn't set on his career path yet. He did make a lot of poor choices after he got to college and while he was in law school. But the specific allegation that came out against him was when he was like 16 or 17 years old.
Sure. And it's just. And
I'm not defending him. I don't like Brett Kavanaugh, but there is that sort of youthful indiscretion kind of thing, right?
And I get that, but right when we're looking at things, when we're looking at things is, I'm like you, I guess. I believe in the Constitution, and I think it's really hard because we look at the Constitution and we realize when it was written, I don't think people can see into the future as much as they can, right? Everybody fights AR-15s and everybody fights, but I tell people right now, right? I can't own a bazooka.
Right, or a tank.
Right?
Yeah.
Well,
you got the people.
Full disclosure, Jim and I have this conversation a lot when it comes to the Second Amendment. And I before you go on, Nick, I kind of want Jim to explain to me, well, to our viewers, his interpretation of the Second Amendment, because I absolutely agree with him.
Okay. Well, I think Nick's probably following along with this, right? You're talking about like you can't own a bazooka or whatever. The Second Amendment was essentially set up to ensure because right, militias were so important to the revolution, and our founders realized that that one of the reasons they were able to win the war was because of militias, and because the vast majority of our fighting forces were militia. It wasn't, the regular army didn't exist, right? The Continental Army formed, but it was formed from militias. It was formed from people who had prior military experience, primarily with the French and Indian Wars. So what happened was they said, okay, we need to be able to have these militias for two reasons. The main reason, well, one of them was to defend the states, and the second reason was to be able to form an army on the go, because we didn't really have a standing army at that point. But at that time, and I think this is where you were going, Nick, right? At that time, individuals could own the most sophisticated hardware known to the military, right? So the musket was it. That was the best that you could do, and individuals owned muskets. And to your point, I think, Nick, where you're headed with this was for us to be able to keep up today, to keep up with the original intent of the Second Amendment, which was to allow states to defend themselves essentially against a central government that was too powerful or against external forces, was for them to be able to own the most sophisticated military hardware available, which would today include bazookas, tanks, nuclear weapons. Oh my God, yeah. So these idiots that were trying to kidnap our governor, really? Like you guys are a real militia? No, that's total bullshit, right? So I think the Second Amendment, if we really want the Second Amendment to continue to be a thing, we have to address that. The fact that do we really want individuals of the caliber of people that we saw in those mugshots to be able to own the most sophisticated military hardware? No. I personally think the reasoning behind the Second Amendment no longer applies. That's my opinion, right? It's impossible for us to truly keep our government at bay. Yeah. Right? Because we would need the most sophisticated hardware, like you're saying. We would need bazookas, we would need tanks, we would need, all these weapons. It's just not possible. But
I want to dumb it down for people a little bit, just because I'm dumb, but I happen to know a little bit, right? So right, when he's talking about this, the way I see it is when you look at Nazi Germany, right? Nazi Germany got rid of all guns for people, okay, and then they brought in crowds of military into the house, right? And so they took and they just took over, right? And then they would kill massive amounts of people. So, right, when I think people say, "Hey, you're not going to take my guns," right? I think we should always have guns, right? I'm a pro-gun person, but not pro like bazookas, pro like, dude. I know how many people do you know that like get shot by accident from a stupid gunshot? Like, I haven't shot my brother, but he's coming to my house in the middle of the night and I just come flying down the stairs like I'm gonna hit this guy. But the idea is right. So yes, we should always be allowed a set style of a gun, right? I own a 1911, which was back then, okay, right?
Yeah, that was absolutely
right. So we should never allow ourselves to get into a spot where the military can come in, but we're also in a spot where, you know what, if the military wants something, they're going to take it type thing, right? Let's say they do. let's say stupidly they outlaw every gun and everybody has to get in. All these people are like, they ain't taking my guns. I mean this with no disrespect to you people out there, that your AR-15 that has, I don't care if you have extended clip, I don't care. The fact is, you don't realize how big the U.S. military is. Let's say they surround your one house. Your one house. Yes, you kill 50 of us. They don't give a shit about the 50. Welcome to the military mindset. They don't care about 50 because another 150,000 people are literally going to be crowding your house.
Exactly.
Just going, see ya. We officially have your guns.
Yep.
The next house, they're going to move right into that next one. Unless you're putting landmines out, unless you are literally big enough to destroy the whole United States military, your guns are going away.
Exactly.
But I'm not saying the U.S. is not trying to get rid of your guns. They're trying to get rid of mass genocide for people from assholes that are out there just shooting random
shootings. Yes, absolutely. Right.
They are not trying to take it away. And yes, I love going to the shooting range as much as the next person. I love it, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say, but yes, there should be a limitation, right? And there already is.
Yep.
And now they're trying to push that limitation to just a little bit more.
Yep, that's all it is.
You know,
So, and when we look at it, this is the other problem I have with these conservatives. They're so pro-life, but they don't want to say anything about school shootings.
Right. Again, they're pro-life. They're
pro-birth,
pro-birth, and they're anti-death. You know, they're again. So it's up to the point that a baby is born.
Yep.
And then if you want to end your life on your terms as opposed to someone else's, they're opposed to that. Anything in the middle, it's
good luck.
Varying degrees, right?
Yeah, you're on your own.
Yep.
So I have a question, but because we're 2 hours and 15 minutes in, and so we're probably going to wrap up soon here.
You're welcome.
But I have a question because Mike and I discussed this the other day when he was up, and we talked about the '92 election. So I kind of want Jim's perspective because he was front and center.
Because I was in the middle of that shit.
You were. So Jim, let me ask, that's the first election where a third-party candidate actually got a lot of backing.
Well, not really the first one, but it was the
first one in our lifetime.
He got more. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
So if Perot doesn't run, does Bush get reelected?
Absolutely.
See, and I totally agree.
Yep, he would have. And so there's a lot at play that year, right? There's the whole thing with Pat Buchanan, who ran against him in the primary and damaged him. I say that, in terms of the numbers, that assumes that we had the same turnout, and that 60, 2/3 of the vote that went to Perot would have gone to Bush. He would have won. However, having said that, as an insider on that campaign, I don't think Bush really wanted to win a second term. He didn't have the fire in his belly. We kind of became aware of that in the summer, and it was just kind of like going through the motions, right? Which was a great experience for me, but being that I was 27 years old at the time, and it was just a kind of a cool thing to go along for on the ride. But I absolutely do think that Perot was a spoiler for Bush, but we can only assume certain things, and that would assume that the turnout was the same. So then it becomes a question of, which really is what the last election in 2016 tilted on, what would the turnout have been had Perot not run? And I can say, my brother, for example, probably would not have voted at all and turned out to vote for Perot. So then it just becomes a numbers exercise. But I do think, based on the information that we had at the time, at least, and I really haven't, given it much attention since that time. The internal information that we had indicated that Bush would have won for sure.
Well, and I know we talk a lot about if you're voting third party at this point, you're voting for Trump, which I totally don't agree with. Okay, I feel if you're voting third party, it depends on where your vote would go if there was no third party option.
Right.
So I know with Nick, he's sitting here going, well, I can't vote against my livelihood, which is business. So if I'm not voting third party, I'm probably voting for Trump. So at this point, Nick's third party vote really is not against Biden and for Trump. It's more against Trump for Biden.
Well, it gets to the same point, right? It's like, what assumptions do we make? And I think you're right that everybody that's saying a third party vote is a vote against, is a vote for Trump. I also disagree with that because, I voted for the Libertarian. I voted for Johnson in 2016. Do I? No. And you know what? No matter what, even knowing what I know now, I think about this a lot. I would not and could not have voted for Hillary. But having said that, so was that a vote for Trump? Well, maybe, but I don't think so because I would not have voted for. I wouldn't have voted for Hillary no matter what. I would have, I would have done what I've done in other elections and written someone in or, whatever. So yeah, I agree, David, that the assumption that especially people on the left are making is that if you vote for Jorgensen, right? The Libertarian candidate or another candidate, that you would otherwise vote for Biden, and I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I don't think you can draw that
No.
conclusion. I think that many of the Stein voters are the ones that probably, if they weren't so pissed off about Bernie, would have voted for Hillary.
Yeah, that's another case of a potential spoiler. For example, in Michigan, Jill Stein got more votes than than was in the gap, right? So, but again, you have to assume that all of those people would have turned out and all of those people would have voted for Hillary. And I just don't think that's the case.
I was in the same spot as you. So I don't tell people, my wife knows, but I voted for Jill Stein.
Mm-hmm.
That was, right. Because again, I was back in that same spot where I couldn't vote for either of the two.
Right. But you wouldn't have voted for either of them though, right?
Right. And that's the whole thing. Like,
right.
And so it's funny because you know how much I used to look up to Donald Trump. I mean, my sister got me a cutout of Donald Trump, right? Because I absolutely love The Apprentice. I think that it talks about business. It shows business. They talk business things. Trump gets in there. Granted, he's failed businesses, but I think failure bleeds success, right? You learn from failure. We talk about it in real estate on a constant.
That's assuming that you learn.
Assuming, right? What happens when you assume,
right?
When you have enough backing, but like even when you fail, like you still have, like let's say you screwed over 50%, you still have the other 50% that you made happy, and you're still able to borrow against it. So like you have that, but I say that's for a whole nother episode.
Mm-hmm.
But right, so what I'm finding hilarious right now, is we're getting so close to the election that now one of the biggest things against Hillary, and all I heard from people on the back one that were Trump supporters was, well, the emails. Cause I was like, can you tell me what the emails said? And now the hilarious thing to me is this Hunter Biden shit.
Same thing. Yep.
What is the emails? What about the emails? And I was like, dude, you went off of it once. You're really hoping for emails twice? Like, I was like, come on.
Not only that, but they're mentioning her emails still.
Yeah, if it works once, you might as well work twice. Well, she sent emails, he sent emails. That's where it's at. Right. And I'm like, Jesus. If you people seen some of the text messages I sent to some of my friends, I would never go full.
Well, in all honesty, if people saw the stuff we send to each other, we wouldn't have jobs anymore. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, but all right, guys. Yeah, we are running really long. Anybody else have any quick things they want to add?
No, I just want to throw out. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay.
Sorry.
Mike,
quick thing, just because
what is your problem?
It goes to what Jim said about Pat Buchanan back in '92, because my kids actually have asked the question of why, if so many people are unhappy with, Trump, why didn't somebody run against him? And I said, well, the problem is it's kind of an unwritten rule that you don't run against an incumbent during a term during that election period, because what it does is it means your party doesn't have 100% faith in you. Right. And I think that kind of goes with that. So that was kind of an interesting thing. And I think just as a point, Nick, you mentioned probably an hour and a half ago something about kind of what you fear, one way. There's a lot of I think we've captured a lot of things that would fear if Biden gets elected. One thing, or if Trump gets elected and everything, one thing that kind of scares me, and it'll play out a lot in the next, week to a month as the election happens and all the final counting occurs, But it's always been kind of an unwritten rule that if you're a lame duck president, you also don't do much. But I'm scared to think if Biden wins, what is Trump going to do over the next 2
Right.
months?
Yep. And he's already started to do some of that, Mike. With changing
Yeah.
regulations and stuff like that. Absolutely.
I think the biggest key is, if you were a Trump supporter, you probably didn't listen to this whole podcast. If we're going to make this podcast, I'll probably stay YouTube.
It'll be both.
Just say,
If you're
if
still here.
you are, you probably hated us enough. If you're a Biden fan, you might have cheered. But the biggest thing, no matter who you are, no matter what you are, if you're over the age of 18, you are registered to vote. Get your butt out there and vote if you haven't
Yep.
already done it.
Absolutely.
Voting is our American right. People have fought for it, and we thank them every day for it. It is our privilege to figure out where this world is coming to. And I say world because, right, we are one of the highest nations out there. Voting to me, everybody, I get those phone calls. Are you going to vote? Hell yes, every single time, guaranteed, with all my heart and soul. And if it happens, great. If not, I'm not mad. Get out and vote. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed it. Got to drink 2 of my favorite beers of all time. I want you to like, I want you to subscribe. I want you to share this. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, statements, we will probably debate you and we will have fun doing it. As long as you keep an educated discussion about it, we will have a good time doing it. Take care, everybody.
Hey, we're not done
And
yet.
vote.
Jim was going to
I
say
am
something.
Oh, I was
done.
just going to say vote. You said it all. Just vote, 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 vote. Don't vote more than once, but please vote.
Totally agree. So we're going to upload this on both YouTube and our podcast. And if you have questions, like Nick said, please reach out because we always have an opinion to share. So we'll see you guys next week.